So back on the server, as soon as my client has logged in with Google and Google has sent back some data, in that data, we have some credentials. And you can find that right here, credential. And in that credential, what do you see here? An access token and an ID token. We're going to send the ID token back. Oh, look at how big that thing is. Dang. We're going to send that back to our server. Our server is going to decode it using the Firebase admin SDK. We're going to get the user's UID from that. It's going to verify that it's safe. And then we're going to keep the user signed in. Now remember, what did we say about trusting the client? Can you ever trust the client? Yes. No. ¿Por qué no? The customer is always right. You're not wrong. Customer is always right. But what if that customer is from Russia and wants to take your stuff? You give it to him. You know what? That's fair. Okay, cool. I accept that. What if that customer is a black hat hacker from New York? You know, then the customer is always wrong. Exactly. The customer wants you to think they're right, Mehrab, but you can never think they're right. Never trust the client, because the client could be anybody. It could even be me. Think about that. I know. Uh-oh is right. So you don't want me taking your stuff, because if I get into Mehrab's bank account, next thing you know, I'm going on a trip to Hawaii. And Ben's coming with me, right, Ben? You already know. Where do you want to go in Hawaii? New York is not in Hawaii. Okay, I'm gonna not continue this line of thought. Back to the code. So we know that we're gonna need to take this ID token right here. It's going to be in data.credential.id token. We want to send it back to the server. When the server receives that ID token, we're just gonna skip over that part for now. We'll do it in a bit. We want to bring in our package, which is npm install --save firebase-admin, and we want to require it inside our server.js by typing in var admin equals require, firebase-admin. Then below that, we need to create a service account. So we need to say var service account equals require. And then this part here is going to be a path to a JSON credentials file that we're going to get from Firebase in a minute. And then right below that, we're going to say var Firebase admin equals admin.initializeApp. And we're going to set two keys in there. One to the credential, which is going to be admin.credential.cert to certify, and we're going to use the service account that we're about to create in a second. The other one is going to be a database URL that's going to allow us to update the database that we will fill in a minute. Now, once you've done this, we can start to do all the fun stuff that Firebase lets us do directly from our server in a safe environment. Before we do that, you have to understand a little bit about how Express works. Express has this concept of middleware that makes authentication and authenticating users for each route much easier. Middleware says before you do anything else, before this request goes through and you send a response back, this middleware inserts itself and does a little bit of work for us. And all middleware is a function. So we're going to create a little bit of middleware right below or right above our home route right here. I'm going to leave a comment that says create authentication middleware. And I'm going to create a function called isAuthenticated like this. Now, the idea behind this is once our user sends a token, we're going to attach that user to every request so that anytime if our request wants to see if the user exists, we can find it out inside our route. So in here, maybe I have like a protected route I don't want them to access, like a profile page. I don't want them to see the profile page, or maybe like the voting app. We're making a voting app, like a tally board. We need to know who's in the lead. We're voting on, what do people vote on in high school? Class president? Homecoming queen? Let's create one app.get homecoming queen. And it's going to be Shakira. Let's be real. And I don't want anyone to see unless they are already logged into my app. So I'm going to response.render homecoming queen.ejs. But before someone can go from app.get homecoming queen to my response.render, I want to insert a middleware right in between that. And this middleware is going to be called isAuthenticated. So it's going to check if user is logged in. If they are, attach them to the body of the request. Actually, just attach them to the request object. If they are not, send them to the login page with an error, with a message saying log in or whatever. And Express makes using middleware very easy. All you need to do is on whatever route you want to check to see if the user is logged in or not, just right after that first app.get, you say is authenticated. And it'll run that function. It'll check to see if they're authenticated. And if they are, it'll run them through this. Now, the idea here, though, is that every request or every one of these routes has a request and a response. But middleware doesn't just take in the request and the response. It also has to go to the next function. So inside isAuthenticated, I put request, response, and next. And if I attach the user, if they're already logged in, attach the user to the request object and call next. And next will take us to this part right here where it renders homecomingqueen.ejs. And this is how we're going to deal with authentication in Express. It makes protecting routes you don't want people who aren't logged in easy to do. And it's pretty cool. But before we do that, I'm going to save this video here and I'm going to stop it for the time being because it is 12:30 and it's time for lunch. So I'm going to save this here, press pause, and we will reconvene in an hour.